When I look back now, I understand that love does not usually break in loud moments. It fades slowly, quietly, while two people believe they still have time. When I and Daniel got married, I believed love alone could protect us from everything. I believed good intentions were enough. I did not understand then that love needs care, attention, and brave conversations. I did not know silence could hurt more than anger. I did not know listening halfway was the same as not listening at all. This story is not about villains or heroes. It is about good people who made small mistakes every day. Daniel and I were not cruel. We were tired, proud, and afraid of conflict. We assumed tomorrow would always come. I learned too late that marriage does not fail because love disappears. It fails when effort becomes optional. By the time regret arrives, it does not scream. It whispers gently, asking why we stopped choosing each other. That question stayed with me, heavy and unavoidable, long after the marriage itself was already gone forever inward. When I and Daniel got married, love felt easy and natural. We did not force happiness. It flowed between us without effort. He held my hand in public like he was proud of me. At night, I listened as he shared his dreams, fears, and plans. We laughed often, sometimes over nothing at all. We felt chosen by each other every single day. Our home felt warm, not because of furniture, but because of presence. We noticed small changes in moods and asked gentle questions. We apologized quickly and forgave easily. Love felt safe then. We believed that feeling would last forever without work. I remember thinking this must be what people mean when they talk about true partnership. We planned our future with excitement and certainty. Children, growth, shared success, and old age together felt guaranteed. We did not imagine distance. We did not imagine silence. We believed love, once found, would naturally stay. We did not know love must be protected daily, especially when life slowly begins demanding more than hearts expect, and patience quietly disappears inside. Looking back, I know it was never about grand gifts or expensive surprises. Love lived in small daily moments. Daniel made coffee for me without asking. I sent messages just to say I missed him. We checked on each other during busy days, even when nothing felt urgent. Those gestures made us feel seen and valued. They reminded us that we mattered deeply to each other. When those small things happened, problems felt manageable and stress felt lighter. Love felt strong and reassuring. We did not realize those tiny actions were building the foundation of our marriage. They were protecting us in ways we could not see yet. Over time, those moments became less frequent. Not because love disappeared, but because we assumed it would survive without effort. I thought skipping one message did not matter. Daniel thought missing one conversation would not change anything. We were both wrong. Love is built quietly, but it also breaks quietly. By the time we noticed the emptiness, those small moments were already gone, taking comfort with them. We missed them only after they stopped completely. Life did not change suddenly. It became louder little by little. Work pressures grew and responsibilities multiplied. Daniel became busy trying to provide and succeed. I became patient, or at least I told myself I was. I understood his long hours and growing stress. I supported him, encouraged him, and waited. At first, waiting felt loving. I believed patience was proof of commitment, but over time, waiting turned into loneliness. Conversations became shorter. Evenings felt quieter. Daniel carried work home in his mind, even when his body was present. I noticed the change before he did. I tried to mention it gently, but I did not want to sound demanding. I told myself this was just a season. Daniel told himself he was doing everything right. We were both tired, but in different ways. Life kept asking for more from us, and we kept giving without checking what our marriage needed. Slowly, our relationship moved from priority to background noise. Neither of us meant for that to happen. It just did, quietly and convincingly, while we stayed distracted. Daniel talked less, and I noticed immediately. I waited for him to open up, believing space would help. He assumed silence meant peace. We were both wrong. The silence grew heavier each day. I had questions, but swallowed them. Daniel had stress, but carried it alone. Our conversations turned practical instead of emotional. We discussed schedules, bills, and tasks. We stopped talking about feelings, fears, and hopes. I missed being heard. Daniel missed being understood. Neither of us said it clearly. When I tried to speak, my words came out wrong. When he listened, he felt criticized. Slowly, silence felt safer than misunderstanding. That was the most dangerous moment. Silence did not mean calm, it meant avoidance. I felt invisible beside the man I loved. Daniel felt unappreciated despite his efforts. We both believed the other should notice first. Pride stood between us, pretending to protect us. In truth, it was separating us. I learned later that silence is not neutral. It chooses distance every time. By the time we realized we were no longer talking, silence had already become our habit, shaping our marriage without permission. When the first emotional crack appeared, it did not feel dramatic or obvious at all. It felt confusing. I felt unseen even while standing beside Daniel every day. He felt unappreciated despite working hard for our future. Neither of us said these feelings out loud. We assumed the other should notice naturally. I waited for Daniel to ask if I was okay. He waited for me to praise his efforts without being reminded. Each expectation went unmet. Resentment quietly took root. I began to withdraw emotionally, protecting myself from disappointment. Daniel pulled away too, believing nothing he did was ever enough. We both believed we were giving more than we received. That belief hurt us deeply. Instead of explaining our pain, we kept score. We remembered every missed moment and every unspoken hurt. Love started feeling heavy instead of comforting. That was the first real crack in our marriage. It did not break us immediately. It weakened the foundation, making everything else that followed easier to damage without us realizing it was happening. And the silence around it kept growing. Pride entered our marriage quietly, pretending to protect us both. Daniel believed providing financially was enough to show love. I believed love required emotional presence and reassurance. Neither of us felt wrong. That was the problem. Pride convinced Daniel he was already doing his part. Pride convinced me that asking for more meant weakness. Instead of bending toward each other, we stood firm. I stopped expressing my needs clearly. Daniel stopped checking in emotionally. We both waited for the other to change first. Pride made compromise feel like defeat. Conversations turned into silent competitions. Who was trying harder? Who was hurting more? Pride kept us from apologizing early. It kept us from admitting fear. We defended our positions instead of protecting our bond. I wanted to feel chosen emotionally. Daniel wanted to feel respected for his efforts. Both needs were valid, yet pride made them clash. Love became a battlefield of unspoken expectations. Looking back, I see how pride slowly replaced humility. Once humility leaves a marriage, distance does not need to be invited. It arrives on its own quietly. Insecurity slowly found a home inside me without asking permission. I began questioning my worth as a wife. I wondered if I was too emotional or too demanding. Daniel responded differently. He avoided difficult conversations whenever they appeared. He told himself things would improve with time. Love was still present between us, but it felt buried under misunderstanding and fear. I searched for reassurance in small gestures. Daniel searched for peace by staying silent. Neither approach worked. My insecurity made me sensitive to everything he said. His avoidance made him seem distant even when he cared. We misunderstood each other constantly. I needed closeness. He needed calm. Instead of discussing these needs, we retreated further. I blamed myself some days. Other days, I blamed him. The truth was more complicated. Insecurity and avoidance fed each other like a cycle we could not escape. Love did not disappear. It became hidden behind walls we built to protect ourselves. Those walls felt safe at first. Eventually, they became the very thing keeping us apart, and we did not know how to stop. Our arguments rarely started with anything important. We fought about dishes left out, time spent apart, and tone of voice. Those fights were never really about chores or schedules. They were about feeling valued. I wanted reassurance that I still mattered to Daniel. He wanted recognition for everything he was carrying. Instead of expressing those needs, we argued about small details. Every disagreement reopened old wounds. I felt unheard. Daniel felt criticized. We raised our voices, then shut down. No one won. Each argument pushed us a little further away. We began avoiding topics that once brought us closer. Love turned tense. Home no longer felt safe emotionally. I remember wondering how something so small could cause so much pain. The truth was, the pain had been building for a long time. Those small arguments were simply the surface. Underneath lived unmet needs, exhaustion, and disappointment. We were fighting for connection but using the wrong language. Instead of asking to be loved better, we accused each other of failing. That changed everything and left lasting damage we did not expect. Over time, listening stopped being about understanding. We listened only to reply. Each conversation felt like preparation for defense. I spoke carefully, already expecting resistance. Daniel listened briefly, already forming answers. We stopped asking questions meant to understand feelings. We asked questions meant to win. I felt like I had to prove my pain. Daniel felt like he had to justify his effort. Conversations became exhausting instead of healing. We interrupted each other. We misunderstood intentions. We assumed the worst before the sentence finished. Emotional safety disappeared. I no longer felt comfortable sharing vulnerability. Daniel no longer felt appreciated when he tried. We talked often, but we did not connect. Listening turned into waiting for our turn to speak. That shift changed everything. Without understanding, love cannot breathe. Without patience, communication becomes conflict. I did not realize then how dangerous that pattern was. By the time we noticed, misunderstanding had become normal. We were no longer partners solving problems together. We were opponents protecting ourselves. That is when our marriage truly started slipping away from us without us knowing why. When problems stay unresolved for too long, outside voices always find a way in. They do not arrive loudly. They come quietly, pretending to care. A coworker told Daniel he was doing his best and that some partners are never satisfied. Daniel listened. He needed reassurance, and those words gave it. Around the same time, a friend told me that if Daniel truly loved me, he would change without being asked. I listened too. I needed validation, and her words felt comforting. Neither of those people lived in our marriage. They only saw pieces, not the whole truth. Still, their opinions felt easier than hard conversations at home. Slowly, we started trusting outsiders more than each other. Daniel stopped questioning his distance. I stopped questioning my growing resentment. The problem was no longer just between us. It was being shaped by people who did not carry the consequences. I did not realize it then, but inviting outside voices into private struggles weakens intimacy. Instead of turning toward each other, we turned away, believing we were being understood, while our marriage quietly suffered from decisions influenced by people who would never have to live with the outcome we were creating together. The advice we received did not sound harmful. That was the danger. It sounded kind, reasonable, and supportive. It told us what we wanted to hear, not what we needed to face. When my friend spoke, she framed her words as concern. She told me I deserved better and should not beg for attention. It felt empowering at first. When Daniel's coworker spoke, he made Daniel feel appreciated and justified. Those words removed responsibility instead of encouraging growth. Advice like that does not heal. It feeds doubt. It turns small issues into permanent conclusions. I began questioning Daniel's love instead of questioning our communication. Daniel began questioning my gratitude instead of questioning his emotional absence. The advice planted seeds of division while pretending to offer clarity. We carried those words back into our marriage and measured each other by them. Slowly, understanding disappeared. We stopped seeing each other fully. I felt supported by my friend, but more disconnected at home. Daniel felt validated by his coworker, but more distant from me. Poison does not always taste bitter. Sometimes it tastes comforting, especially when it confirms fears we are already afraid to confront honestly together. Without realizing it, trust shifted away from where it belonged. Daniel trusted outside voices more than my emotions. I trusted my friend's fears more than Daniel's intentions. That shift was subtle but powerful. When I expressed hurt, Daniel believed I was overreacting because someone else had already told him so. When Daniel tried to explain himself, I doubted his sincerity because my friend had planted suspicion. We stopped giving each other the benefit of the doubt. Every action was questioned. Every silence felt intentional. Trust, once broken, does not collapse suddenly. It weakens slowly, like a thread pulled one strand at a time. I noticed I shared more details about my marriage with my friend than with my husband. Daniel shared his frustrations with coworkers, instead of with me. That distance felt safer than vulnerability. We trusted interpretations from people who were not emotionally invested in repairing our marriage. We believed opinions over lived experiences. Looking back, that was the turning point. When trust leaves the relationship and seeks comfort elsewhere, intimacy follows shortly after. We did not notice intimacy fading. We only noticed how much easier it felt to talk to others than to each other anymore. Distance did not shock us when it arrived. It felt natural, even peaceful at first. We stopped checking in emotionally. We stopped asking how the other was really feeling. We stopped trying to fix what felt exhausting. Distance required less effort than healing. I told myself space was healthy. Daniel told himself silence prevented conflict. Days passed without meaningful conversation. Nights felt longer and quieter. We lived in the same house but separate emotional worlds. I no longer expected comfort from Daniel. He no longer expected understanding from me. That expectation disappearing was the most painful part. Distance became routine. We adjusted to it without questioning whether we should. We shared responsibilities but not connection. We shared space but not intimacy. Effort felt unnecessary because hope felt smaller. We assumed this was what marriage became over time. That assumption was wrong. Distance is not maturity. It is surrender. We surrendered without discussing it. Neither of us announced we were giving up. We simply stopped reaching. And when reaching stops, love does not fight. It waits quietly until it no longer feels needed. By then, even noticing the distance feels uncomfortable and familiar at the same time. The night everything changed was not loud or dramatic. There was no shouting, no slammed doors, just cold silence. We argued earlier that evening about something small. I do not even remember what it was anymore. What I remember is how tired we both sounded. Daniel spoke carefully, already distant. I responded defensively, already hurt. The conversation ended without resolution. We sat in silence, surrounded by words we did not say. That silence felt final. Daniel stood up, gathered his things, and said he needed space. I did not stop him. I believed letting him go meant protecting my dignity. He believed leaving would bring clarity and peace. Neither of us realized we were making a decision that would change everything. When the door closed, something inside me collapsed quietly. I told myself this was temporary. Daniel told himself this was necessary. That night marked the moment distance became separation. Not because love was gone, but because communication was broken. We walked away believing space would heal us. In reality, it created room for regret to grow, unnoticed, until it was too heavy to ignore. When Daniel left that night, I told myself I would finally have peace. At first, the quiet felt like relief. No tension, no arguments, no waiting for disappointment. But freedom is not the same as peace. Days passed, then weeks. I handled life alone, and I handled it well on the outside. I worked, I slept, I smiled for others. Inside, something felt unfinished. Daniel felt the same, though I did not know it yet. He filled his time with work and new routines, believing distance would heal him. Instead, emptiness followed him everywhere. Freedom gave us space, but it also removed warmth. There was no one to share victories with, no one to comfort failure. I realized marriage was not just about romance, it was about belonging. Without Daniel, I felt untethered. Without me, he felt unseen. Freedom removed responsibility, but it also removed meaning. We had escaped conflict, not solved it. That realization hurt deeply. Leaving did not bring peace, it only delayed pain, allowing regret to quietly grow stronger, while we pretended separation was strength instead of surrender. Regret did not arrive dramatically. It came quietly, almost politely. It showed up in small moments. I felt it when something good happened and there was no one to tell first. I felt it when evenings felt longer than they should. I told myself I was healing, but regret whispered otherwise. Daniel felt it too. Success did not feel satisfying. Freedom did not feel fulfilling. Regret asked questions neither of us wanted to answer. Why did we stop trying? Why did we listen to others instead of each other? Why did pride feel safer than honesty? Those questions lingered. Regret was not about missing arguments. It was about missing connection. I missed being known. Daniel missed being trusted. We both missed the version of us that once felt natural. Regret does not punish immediately. It waits until you believe you are fine. Then it reminds you of what could have been saved. That was the hardest part. Knowing we did not lose love suddenly, we neglected it slowly. Regret made that truth impossible to ignore. It did not shout. It stayed, patient and heavy, until we were ready to face it honestly. Our reunion was unplanned and quiet. No dramatic music, no emotional preparation. We met by chance, like strangers with shared history. Time had softened our edges. We looked older, calmer, more careful. When Daniel spoke, I heard honesty instead of defense. When I spoke, I felt safe instead of guarded. There was no anger left, only curiosity and sadness. We talked slowly, choosing words carefully. We spoke about life, not accusations. We admitted loneliness without blame. That moment felt fragile and powerful. Pride was absent, fear was honest. We did not rush forgiveness or promises. We allowed truth to breathe. I realized then how much silence had cost us. Daniel admitted he never wanted to leave permanently. I admitted I wanted him to fight harder. Those truths hurt, but they healed something too. Reunion did not mean resolution. It meant understanding. For the first time in years, we listened fully. Not to reply, not to defend, just to understand. That changed everything. Sometimes healing begins not with fixing the past, but with finally seeing it clearly together, without noise, without outsiders, without pride standing in the way anymore. As we talked more, the truth slowly unfolded. We spoke about the advice we followed and the voices we trusted. Daniel admitted how outside validation made him feel justified. I admitted how fear shaped my assumptions. We saw clearly how manipulation does not always come from bad intentions. Sometimes it comes from ignorance and insecurity. We believed lies not because we were foolish, but because we were tired and hurt. Ego fed those lies. Silence protected them. Love was neglected while pride grew stronger. That realization was painful. We had blamed each other for years when the real damage came from what we allowed between us. We allowed distance. We allowed others inside sacred space. We allowed misunderstanding to live longer than truth. Seeing that hurt deeply, but it also freed us. We were not enemies. We were partners who lost direction. That understanding softened everything. The truth did not excuse our mistakes. It explained them. And understanding is the first step toward maturity. Whether love survives or not, truth gives clarity. That clarity felt heavy but honest. It was something we had avoided for too long, and facing it together finally felt right. For a long time, I believed Daniel was the problem. Daniel believed I was never satisfied. That belief kept us stuck. But during those honest conversations, we finally saw the real enemy. It was not each other. It was ego, silence, and misplaced trust. Ego made us defend instead of listen. Silence made us assume instead of ask. Misplaced trust allowed outsiders to shape our reality. That enemy worked quietly, patiently, and effectively. We fed it without knowing. Realizing this did not erase pain, but it redirected it. I stopped seeing Daniel as someone who failed me. He stopped seeing me as someone impossible to please. We saw two people who loved imperfectly and learned too late. That realization changed how I understood marriage. Love needs boundaries. Advice should never replace conversation. Pride should never lead decisions. Seeing the real enemy gave us wisdom, even if it came late. Whether reconciliation happens or not, that lesson remains. Marriage fails when partners stop protecting the space between them. Once that space is invaded, love struggles to survive. Understanding that truth was painful, but it was also the most honest clarity I had ever felt. When I and Daniel finally spoke honestly, it felt fragile but freeing. We admitted our mistakes without blaming each other. I told him how my impatience and insecurity had added distance. Daniel admitted how his pride and avoidance made me feel unseen. No one tried to justify themselves. No one shouted or demanded apologies. We listened to each other fully, for the first time in years. Accountability felt heavier than blame, but it was real. It was painful to hear my own role in our suffering. It was painful to hear Daniel's, but acknowledging the truth together made space for understanding. We realized that love is not proof against mistakes. It needs honesty, humility, and willingness to change. It needs both people to take responsibility for how they contributed to the cracks. That night, I felt clarity for the first time. I understood that reconciliation is not about erasing the past. It is about being willing to face it together, without defensiveness. Accountability without blame became the bridge we had long forgotten existed, connecting two hearts that still wanted to matter to each other. When I thought about everything Daniel and I had lost, the weight was almost unbearable. I remembered small things we used to do. The laughter in our kitchen, the quiet conversations at night, the feeling of being chosen daily. All of it seemed gone. taken by pride, silence, and distractions. I mourned what could have been, the closeness we ignored for so long. Daniel mourned too, but his grief was quieter, internalized. We did not need to speak it. It was heavy, and yet, strangely, it was necessary. Grief reminded us of what mattered. It reminded us that love had been real, even if mishandled. We grieved not only for our marriage, but for the moments we missed because we didn't speak, listen, or protect it. The weight of that loss grounded us. It forced honesty. It forced humility. I realized that mourning something lost is not weakness. It is proof that we still care, that we value what once existed. We could not undo the past, but acknowledging the weight of loss allowed us to see the fragile, beautiful possibility of what might remain. When I and Daniel finally sat together, we understood we had a choice. Reconciliation was possible, but it could not be forced. We did not rush into promises or decisions. We took our time, speaking slowly, listening carefully. We acknowledged the hurt, the pride, the silence, and the mistakes that had separated us. We did not pretend that reconciliation would erase the pain. We only agreed that we were willing to try, without pressure or expectation. That choice felt different from anything before. It was grounded in honesty, not fear or pride. I realized marriage is not about winning arguments or assigning blame. It is about choosing to show up for each other, even when it is hard. Daniel realized it too. We both had to commit to patience, understanding, and mutual effort. For the first time in years, I felt hope without anxiety. We could rebuild slowly, carefully, with awareness of the mistakes that nearly broke us. That night, the choice itself felt like a gift, a decision to protect something valuable, knowing we would have to work for it every single day. When I reflect on everything that happened, I see that wisdom was born from pain. We learned that love alone is never enough. It must be paired with honesty, communication, and boundaries. Daniel and I understood that small neglects build cracks that pride and silence can widen. We saw how outside voices can manipulate emotions when trust is fragile. We learned that listening fully and patiently can prevent misunderstandings from growing into regrets. Pain taught us the importance of choosing each other every day, even when life is busy and stress is high. We discovered that accountability without blame is stronger than apologies without understanding. We also realized that sometimes letting go of ego and asking for help is necessary to heal. That wisdom is now part of us. Even if we never return to the exact same marriage we had, it shapes how we approach love and life moving forward. Pain had been harsh, but it was honest. The lessons were permanent. We could carry them into the future, protecting our hearts from repeating the mistakes we had lived through, shaping a love grounded in truth and care.